I did not realize so many of these cartoons actually come from different countries. And I think the most shocking has got to be the Smurfs. Who is going to tell me the Smurfs is Belgian? It's a Belgian comic franchise. How did I go my entire life without realizing this? Besides just waffles in general, this has got to be Belgium's #1 export to the world, right? Now, the UK probably has a lot to choose from, but right now they got Peppa Pig as the #1 cartoon. There's actually kind of an unbelievable amount of British cartoons that I also didn't know were technically British, except for this. I knew that was hella British. Kind of surprised the US didn't have SpongeBob on it, but I have to admit, Tom and Jerry is probably the most famous to most of the world population right now. We've just passed the 85-year anniversary. That means an 85-year-old could have watched this show growing up, and considering these memes are still being used today, yeah, like everyone knows about Tom and Jerry. I'm gonna be real, all the other cartoons I don't think I recognize, which isn't too surprising considering I only really speak English. I have, however, seen this that's apparently Swiss. Newt, newt. Look, I just gave away I'm not actually a real fan. I literally know this just because of memes. And again, another cartoon that I know just because of memes. Crazy that you can literally meme your childhood cartoon that wasn't even translated into English to force me to know about it. Okay, to be fair, maybe some of this was actually translated into English. I just never watched it. You can definitely tell these are both two older cartoons though, which might have made it easier to meme it into the stratosphere. Pocoyo though, out of Spain, doesn't look quite as old. That looks computer generated. This premiered in 2005. I definitely wasn't watching like kids cartoons in 2005. Wait, you know what's crazy? I think I did watch this in Spain though one day. I like watching kids shows to be able to learn Spanish. Nutri Ventures, finding it fascinating to see like what is the most famous cartoon out of every country. Like the Italians, of course, just got a bunch of ladies. Not surprised. And of course, the French gotta have something to do with cockroaches. I know y'all eat snails over there, but what else is gonna be next? This makes me think like which countries in Europe are like the animation powerhouses, because don't forget there are definitely a lot of animation powerhouse countries like the US, obviously Japan. They single-handedly changed the way we see the word animation. We just call it anime. Oh, this Czechia one, I've also seen that before. These just look like Polish cartoons, I'm gonna be honest. Why we always gotta deal with the Cossacks. And of course, Russia's gonna have something to do with a bear. Oh, Legoland. Is it Bionicles or something? What is this? Some Lego thing. Frenchman here, Oogie and the Cockroaches was so popular back then that my brother asked my mother if we could buy cockroaches. Luckily, you don't gotta buy those sometimes. Forgot that you could probably see a lot of these cartoons literally on the streets of some cities. Newt, newt. I'll be honest, I think I'm a little too old to be able to recognize this, but there might be a lot more American youth that do know these shows, well, a lot more than me. By the way, if you want to make maybe your own cartoon, consider getting the Vietnam ball, Thailand ball, or Philippines ball. Maybe you could do something like stop motion with them. That's right, we finally have an ASEAN drop, or Southeast Asian nations. I've seen these countries asked for quite a long time. There's a link down below to makeship.com. You can reserve yours today before they're gone forever. We all know that cartoons aren't really being consumed quite as much as they used to. Nowadays, it's all about YouTube. And these are the amount of YouTube channels with over 10 million subscribers in each country. I can't even wrap my head around that number. This is how you earn the highly coveted diamond play button. I only have the gold and I'm not expecting to get anything higher than this. So obviously we're talking a massive achievement here. Every just one is a massive achievement. And India has 481 channels with over 10 million subscribers. That is mind-blowing. These numbers are constantly changing literally every single day, but there's roughly about 15,000 YouTube channels across the world with over 10 million subscribers. The US being #1 with over 11,000. But then it is India at 481. Apparently Brazil is in third too. Now you might be wondering why the second most populated country on earth only has one. That is because YouTube is banned in China. And here she is. She's actually at 11 million subscribers right now. She's the only one? That's crazy. You might be confused how she got that many, especially she's a Mandarin speaking channel. A lot of Chinese people apparently are just using VPNs to get around it. But you know what? She actually doesn't do any speaking at all. That's probably why she's so popular, because you don't need to know the language to be able to enjoy your videos. Okay, well there's maybe a little bit of Mandarin in there, but not much. What I find fascinating though is South Korea actually has more 10 million subscriber YouTube channels than Japan, when Japan has like over twice the population too. Are they just way more chronically online over there? 14 YouTube channels with over 10 million subscribers, and they're just coming from Hong Kong. Taiwan only has one. Never underestimate the population that live on Indonesia. It is the 4th largest populated country on Earth. Again, a lot of these numbers are going to come down to population, as you can see. Not all always though. For example, there's 3 in Malaysia, but 9 in Singapore. There's 25 channels with 10 million subscribers in Thailand and 24 in Vietnam. There's about 30 more people that live in Vietnam versus Thailand, so that's pretty significant. Another aspect that we're probably not thinking is your access to the internet. If more and more of your population has access to not just internet, but high-speed internet, they're more likely going to watch YouTube. I mean, that was kind of the thing with India. Like, we literally all watched India get high-speed internet across their entire country because one by one, Indian YouTube channels started to take over. I'm thinking of the old T-Series days. Something's telling me slightly that wealth also has something to do with it. I mean, look at the UAE with 31. I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, but it does feel like not only population helps, but if you're just like a richer, smaller country in general, that helps. I mean, maybe that's the case for Singapore. Another thing I'm considering that I can't get my head around is like the languages here. Some of these countries, they're not known for their English speakers. Like South Korea, I'm gonna assume that a lot of these channels are probably just speaking Korean, especially a lot of the Thai channels are probably just speaking Thai. That has got to say something. I wonder if you have like availability, if English is more widespread in your country, if that also means that you have a higher likelihood of getting 10 million subscribers, probably because English is such a widely spoken language around the world. Now, language definitely explains Spain back in Europe. Spanish is such a huge language on YouTube. It's like the second biggest, apparently, is what all the emails that are trying to get me to translate my videos into Spanish are trying to tell me. A lot of channels that like just translate their videos from English to Spanish can blow up. And just think about it. Obviously, Spanish is not just being listened to in the country of Spain. It's being listened to in Mexico and Argentina and Chile. Kind of really shocked there's only 10 channels with 10 million subscribers in France. Only 13 in German. Again, these are languages though that probably are not as widespread. I mean, not even probably. They're just not as widespread as English and Spanish. There's 24 Russian YouTube channels. Now, they might not, obviously Russian speakers don't just come from Russia. There's lots of Russian speakers all around the world too. It must be crazy to be the one dude in Bulgaria or the one dude in Romania or the one dude in Belarus. How is Latvia showing up all these other countries? Again, this data is literally changing on the daily. There is more and more YouTube channels that will continue to pass the 10 million subscriber threshold. And it's so fascinating to be able to explain some of these numbers like this. The Finnish ones must be heavy metal bands singing in English or something because 10 million is almost twice the whole population of the country. Again, though, you don't necessarily need to be speaking the language. It could be one of those like just visual only channels. Being the origin of popular languages certainly makes a difference, of course. Insane that we're not seeing way more out of Portugal just because Portugal has access to all of Brazil, who is Portuguese speaking. Now, some of these are just massive brands like Red Bull. Red Bull got counted for Austria, apparently. Some Russian YouTube channels have a different country of origin in their description now because YouTube monetization is disabled in Russia. I'm aware some channels are faked as United States. Yes, there's also other countries. I've come across a lot of YouTube channels that do fake their location. Maybe they did it as like a joke a long time ago, but now they're just stuck with it. I literally feel like it's only a matter of time before India even passes up the United States with more than 10 million YouTube channels just because they've got 1.5 billion people. And if they speak English, bam, that's crazy. The US dollar is on track to have its worst year in modern history. Since the beginning of January in 2025, it has literally only fallen, especially compared to all these others. We're just getting demolished out here. Well, I believe all these other gray lines are just previous performances of the US dollar. Again, we're only halfway through the year. Maybe it'll catch up, but this is not good if you're a traveler like me. That means that our US dollar is not going to go quite as far in other countries. For example, the reason why everybody and your mama out here are going to Japan is because the Japanese yen sucks. The Japanese yen has just been heavily devalued. Some say, I guess it was intentionally. Yeah, everyone's going to Japan because Japan's super cheap right now. But if things continue at this pace, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be as cheap anymore because our dollar isn't as valuable. Just look at this chart comparing the US dollar to the euro. When I was visiting Europe back in like 2022, 2023, it was basically like 1-to-1. That is certainly not the way things are going anymore. So, yeah, I'm not going to be going to Europe anytime soon. It's getting way too expensive over there. Man, I don't even want to see this Swiss franc. Yeah, Switzerland's been killing us for a long time. This is nothing new. The question ahead is whether the US dollar doesn't just lose its value, but its role at the center of the global financial system. Something to keep in mind, though, is it could be the US dollar is just going back to average trends. It was historically extremely high after the pandemic. It could be just going back to normal like we saw in 2016, 17, 18, 19. It's really just going to depend on if this thing continues to keep on falling. Kaboom! Yes, Rico, kaboom. These are all the countries that are leaving the Ottawa Convention. They are doing this to be able to deploy landmines. That's right. And I wonder why. Why would these countries want to deploy more landmines? They seem to be kind of all close together. Is it Germany, Poland? Is that who's scaring you? To break it down, the Ottawa Convention is an international agreement that prohibits the use and stockpiling, production, and transfer of anti-personnel landmines. Now, this map used to be a lot more blue, but in 2025, a couple countries have withdrawn. I mean, Ukraine has obviously had to withdraw for a minute now, but also Poland, all the Baltic states, and Finland. These are all countries that happen to border Russia, whether it's mainland Russia or their enclave in Kaliningrad, in which landmines would probably be very useful in a defensive war against Russia, possibly. I mean, we're not going to say that, but we're also not going to say that. That's absolutely insane. Now, all these countries might not actively be laying them down right now, or they could. I mean, they could. They could just be also preparing to do so or stockpiling them up. It's scary because there's a reason why so many countries have chosen to agree to this Ottawa Convention. Landmines are not good. I mean, just ask Denmark after World War II. They had to go and clean all that up. A lot of these countries still have landmines all over the place. I actually think of two other countries as well, Bosnia and Laos. I'm sure all these NATO countries do not want to deploy landmines, but they're also going to do what they got to do to survive. Speaking of Yugoslavia, I love talking about Yugoslavia. This is how the country call codes changed after the fall of it, or the fall of the 38. Now, if you didn't know, every single country has a calling code. If you're from the US, we got lucky, we got #1. I guess if you're from the US or Canada, that is. Now, a lot of other nations have 2 digits. If you're really unlucky, you got 3 digits. So in order for me as a US citizen to call, let's say, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, I gotta make sure I put the country code first and then the phone number. They have area codes there too. I'm not at 100%, but imagine the 3-digit country code, then the 3-digit area code, then the 7-digit phone number in general. Man, that's a lot of dialing. There's only a couple of nations in all of Europe that have a 3-digit country code. Obviously, the newer your nation is, the more likely you're gonna have 3 digits, funny enough. And that's exactly the case here with the countries that formed out of the ashes of Yugoslavia. Now, they all retained the first 2 digits, 38, and then they just started handing 1 extra digit. Look at Serbia getting 1. Oh boy, how did that not cause a second war? Then Montenegro getting 2. Kosovo has their own calling code. So you might have got #1 there, Serbia, but you had to give up Kosovo for it. Interesting that there's no 384. What happened to 384? Croatia got 385. Slovenia got 386. Bosnia with 387. There's no 388. And then there's North Macedonia. Maybe there's already people with 384 or something, 388. Again, those are all changes in the last 30 years that they had to do. Funnily enough, the call code for Ukraine is 380. Basically, the 3s and 4s are coming from Europe. Like, Europe tries to only use a 3 or 4 in the very beginning. And there's still room for a couple new countries if you guys want to keep on breaking apart over there. Most hated sports franchise. We're also including Canada. Is this exclusively just NHL up here in Canada? I'm not surprised. In California, we of course hate the Boston Celtics. I think that checks out. There's rivalries between the Celtics and the Lakers. That runs deep. Arizona having the Seattle Seahawks in the NFL. I don't really get that. Kansas City's hated in Nevada, probably just because of like betting odds in Vegas. Oregon hates the University of Washington. This is definitely because of college football. They kind of have a rivalry. And then Washington hates the San Francisco 49ers because they love the Seahawks up there. Wyoming hates the Colorado University football team, and then Montana hates the Idaho Vandals. For some of the smaller states, you're going to see a lot of college football. Remember that the 2 most popular sports in all of the U.S. is #1, the NFL, and #2, college football. Then it's the NBA, then I think it's the MLB. We love American football here. New Mexico and Texas both hate the Philadelphia Eagles out of the NFL, and then Oklahoma hates the Texas Longhorns. Yeah, the smaller states, like I said, when they don't have a NFL franchise, they definitely love their college football the most. So Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama all hate the LSU Tigers. Meanwhile, where LSU actually comes from, Louisiana State University, they're focused more on their NFL franchise because they have the New Orleans Saints. They hate the Atlanta Falcons, and Georgia hates them equally back. Florida surprisingly going with their college football rival, that is the Georgia Bulldogs. South Carolina and Tennessee both hating the Alabama Roll Tide. A couple years ago, we probably would have seen this entire map just be New England. Actually, kind of surprised that the entire map is not just the Kansas City Chiefs. If they won the last Super Bowl, it definitely would be just the Kansas City Chiefs. The Dakotas and Mississippi all hating hating the Green Bay Packers. Meanwhile, Wisconsin just hates Chicago. Finally, an MLB. Oh, I guess there's some MLB with the Cubs here. Yep, this is one of the deepest rivalries, Ohio State and Michigan. I thought we'd kind of see more Dallas Cowboys. Oh, here are all the Dallas. Man, the East Coast despises the Cowboys. I think because the Cowboys aren't ever a threat, that's why there's not more Cowboys. The Cowboys suck. The Red Sox, of course, hated the most in New York. It's funny to see some of the baseball states. Like the baseball states, you could just tell there's so much rich history behind it. Alaska, that's pretty random just to hate the Niners, but okay. They don't really have a lot of franchises up there. Funny to see Canada just on a whole nother wavelength up there. Ohio, Michigan is real. Yes, it is one of the deepest rivalries. If you don't watch college football, I would definitely advise it. Boston area is the only place with all of the big four making the cut somewhere. Oh, yeah, everyone in New England, everyone hates the Yankees. Baseball culture in the Northeast. Alberta out here hating themselves. Oh, you know what? There was some college basketball there if they hated Gonzaga. Pretty sure the most hated team in Texas is the Dallas Cowboys. No one in North Carolina thinks about the University of Virginia. California might be a little bit confused and skewed by just Southern California because of the Lakers, but if you're coming from NorCal, it's probably very different. Thank you to my patrons this month. Drew seems like the kind of guy who never loses the remote. Drew's Argentinian Trust Fund, RIP Grandpa. Drew Supremacy League. Alexander the Terrible. Carmel S. Connor Pavlik. Douche Baggins. Frederick Tiblin. King. Bear Hay. Luxembourg Lover. Miglu. The Goat. Nolan. Lord Tyrell. And Tambrin.